The arena world of Carvos had earned countless names across the galaxy, but none captured its cruelty better than the title whispered by prisoners, the Arena of No Return. Once an ancient ceremonial battleground, it had evolved into a spectacle of fear, blood, and power. The emperors fed on suffering, and the crowds devoured it like nourishment. On this day, however, the arena's sands would witness something they had never seen before. The marine arrived in chains, escorted by towering guards whose armor gleamed with the chill of indifference. His capture had been a stroke of misfortune he still barely understood. One moment fighting in orbit, the next waking on a prisoner transport headed for Carvos. He had survived hostile worlds, burning atmospheres, impossible missions, and relentless battlefields, but nothing had prepared him for the overwhelming roar of the alien Colosseum that awaited him. The arena floor was a circle carved into the world itself, surrounded by jagged obsidian towers and crimson banners stained with the memories of forgotten challengers. The sand beneath his feet had absorbed centuries of spilled blood, turning its natural pale tone into something dark and rust-colored. Every step he took sank with a weight that felt less like earth and more like a promise of death. Across the battlefield stood his opponent, the alien gladiator they called the Bloodforged Huntress. She was unlike any warrior he had faced, tall, sculpted by relentless battles, her skin patterned with natural armor that shimmered like carved stone under the arena lights. Her presence commanded fear, yet beneath the brutal reputation lay something more complex. She carried herself with discipline, not savagery, purpose, not madness. She had been forged for war since birth, trained to kill for the Empire's entertainment. But there was something in her stance, some flicker of resistance, that did not belong to a mindless destroyer. The crowd roared at the sight of her, chanting her title like a goddess of conquest. The Marine felt their expectations pressing on him like a vice. The Empire wanted blood, a swift execution to remind the galaxy of human inferiority. The arena masters had chosen her for efficiency, spectacle, and cruelty. They expected him to die quickly, to become just another nameless offering to their hunger. He studied her posture, her breathing, the way her eyes traveled across the arena and then settled on him. Her gaze was steady, unnervingly calm. It lacked the hatred he expected. Instead, it held calculation and a strange, heavy weariness. She too had grown tired of being a symbol, a weapon, a tool of fear. When the first horns sounded, the world froze. Lights converged on them. The heat of the arena intensified, burning the air. The huntress shifted into her battle stance, her muscles coiling with lethal tension. The Marine steadied his breathing, his senses sharpening as instinct took over. They circled each other on the sand, two beings molded by war, yet driven by lies that had spiraled far beyond their control. The second horn thundered, and the battle began. She moved first, striking with speed that defied her size. Her weapon, a long, bladed staff forged with alien alloys, whirled through the air with lethal precision. The Marine dodged narrowly, feeling the blade slice the space beside his cheek. He countered with swift footwork, using the agility his human frame afforded him, forcing distance between them. The clash continued with increasing intensity, each blow testing limits, each strike carrying the full history of their species' hatred. Yet something unexpected unfolded in the fight. Their movements, chaotic at first, began to fall into a rhythm. He anticipated her swings. She adapted to his counters. Their weapons clashed, but beneath each impact lay a growing understanding. Each saw the discipline in the other, the scars earned through years of conflict, the silent stories written in their stances. The Marine began to recognize her hesitation, not weakness, but restraint. Each time she had a chance to deliver a fatal blow, her strike veered just enough to spare him. She was testing him, not executing him. She was reading him, learning him, and he realized he was doing the same. Then the ground trembled. A deep rumble echoed beneath the arena as metal gates shifted open around the perimeter. The crowd erupted with savage joy. This was the true purpose of the duel. The moment the arena masters unleashed their beasts. Massive creatures with armored hides, serrated limbs, and claws sharp enough to rend starship hulls surged onto the sands. The Marine had heard whispers of these beasts, bred for brutality, engineered to tear apart both gladiators and prisoners for spectacle. The Huntress and the Marine instinctively shifted into defensive positions, but not against each other. The beasts charged with feral hunger, drawn to movement and blood. Without speaking, without planning, the two warriors moved in sync. The Marine dodged the first attacking beast and rolled to recover a fallen blade. The Huntress intercepted another monster, her staff slicing across its armored head, stunning it long enough for the Marine to drive his weapon through its vulnerable joint. The crowd fell into stunned silence. No enemy had ever stood beside the Huntress. No human had ever fought in Carvos with such precision, such resilience, such refusal to die. Another beast lunged, but she shoved him aside and took the blow on her armor, driving her knee into the creature's chest before impaling it with brutal force. He covered her flank, striking down the limb of a creature attempting to ambush her from behind. Together, they carved through the monstrous wave, not as rivals but as a single force, bound by survival and something deeper forming in the heat of battle. When the last beast fell, the arena floor was littered with bodies and scorched sand. The Marine and the Huntress stood side by side, heaving, blood-soaked, bruised, but alive. They turned toward each other, both aware that something irreversible had just been forged between them. A bond the arena masters had never intended. A bond that would change the fate of worlds. The arena masters watched in disbelief as the Marine and the Huntress stood amid the fallen beasts, their bodies marked by wounds, yet their stances unbroken. No record in the centuries-long history of Carvos had ever displayed such defiance. Two enemies, one human, one alien, had not only survived the impossible, but done so united, their movements synchronized as if shaped by the same fire. The Empire expected carnage, not cooperation. The spectators expected bloodshed, not a bond forged silently between two soldiers who were never meant to understand each other. High above the arena, the judges debated their next move in frantic agitation. The crowd was restless, demanding a conclusion worthy of their expectations. The Empire wanted dominance, not unity. And so the masters made their decision. The Marine and the Huntress would not be allowed to leave the sands. If they would not kill each other, then they would die together. Massive locks shifted beneath the arena floor, and the hunters hidden behind the observation decks braced for the next command. The ground trembled, signaling the release of something far worse than beasts, something engineered solely for extermination. The Marine sensed the shift instantly. His instincts tightened, reading the arena like a battlefield he had crossed countless times. The Huntress felt it as well, her posture lowering, her breath steadying as she interpreted the vibrations beneath her feet. Both recognized the same truth. The Empire had decided they were a threat. Before the next wave emerged, their eyes met across the battlefield. The Marine saw no hatred in her gaze, only determination, resilience, and a spark of something that felt strangely like trust. She had spent her entire life fighting for an audience that demanded her suffering. Now she stood beside someone who fought not to survive, but to protect. For the first time, she sensed a presence she could lean on, even if for a fleeting moment. The gates thundered open again. But this time, nothing roared. Nothing stomped. Nothing snarled. Instead, a mechanical hum echoed through the arena, a sound of precision, of death shaped not by nature, but by design. From beneath the sands rose towering constructs of metal and bone, the Empire's execution machines. Their bodies were plated with reinforced alloys, their limbs ending in energy-forged blades capable of slicing through the toughest armor. Their single luminous eyes glowed like burning suns fixed on their prey. They were not meant for spectacle. They were meant for erasing problems. The crowd fell into a hushed awe as the constructs began their advance. Even the spectators sensed the shift from entertainment to extermination. The Huntress and the Marines stood back to back as the machines encircled them. Their breathing synchronized, their weight shifting in perfect unison, as if they had trained together for years rather than shared only minutes in combat. The Marine's grip tightened on his weapon. The Huntress readied her staff, feeling the familiar thrum of power coursing through her veins. The machines lunged. The first construct moved with terrifying speed. Its blade swept toward the Marine's chest, but the Huntress pivoted, intercepting the blow with her armored forearm. Sparks exploded as metal screeched against living stone. Before the machine could recover, the Marine countered by driving his blade into the exposed joint beneath its shoulder. The construct faltered, stumbling backward in a shower of ruined circuitry. Another machine targeted the Huntress from the side, but the Marine intercepted it, tackling the metal beast with the full force of a trained soldier. His injuries from earlier screamed through his body, yet he pushed beyond pain, fueled by something he did not yet understand. The Huntress struck with precision, dismantling the machine's core with a swift, devastating blow. Their combat was a dance, violent, fluid, unstoppable. Each move supported the other. When he faltered, she was there. When she faced danger, he covered her flank. The arena masters watched in growing dread as their extermination machines fell one by one. But victory carried its own price. The Marine's strength began to drain faster than his training could compensate. A deep gash along his side, inflicted by one of the beasts earlier, reopened under the strain of constant battle. Blood dripped into the sand with every motion, leaving a trail of crimson behind him. His vision blurred at the edges, yet he refused to slow down. The Huntress noticed immediately. She had been bred to observe weaknesses, yet something in her resisted using that skill against him. Instead, she shifted to guard the right side of his body, taking on more of the incoming machine assaults. Her armor cracked under the onslaught. Her limbs trembled from the force of the blows. But she held the line, refusing to let him fall. The arena floor grew silent, filled only with the clatter of broken metal and the ragged breaths of two exhausted warriors. When the final construct collapsed, its glowing eye dimming into nothingness, the crowd erupted in disbelief. The Huntress and the Marine stood amid the ruins, drenched in sweat, blood, and dust. They remained upright only through sheer resilience, and something deeper pulling them forward. Their victories were not triumphs to the Empire, they were crimes. Above them, the arena masters issued a new command. Guards surged into the arena, dozens at first, then hundreds, armed with stun spears and containment shields. The Marine steadied himself, raising his weapon despite the agony coursing through his body. The Huntress moved closer to him, her stance protective. She had never stood between her own empire and a target, but she did so now. She had never defied an order, but the instinct to defend him overrode every lesson drilled into her since childhood. The guards advanced with calculated caution. The arena masters didn't want a battle. They wanted subjugation. They wanted the Marine and the Huntress broken, not dead. Their resistance had sparked a moment of unity the Empire could not afford to spread. The Marine faltered, finally succumbing to the blood loss. His knees buckled, but before he could fall, the Huntress caught him, lowering him gently to the ground. Her eyes scanned his wounds, tightening with a fierce, protective intensity she had never felt before. She shielded his unconscious form with her body as the guards closed in. The Huntress could have fought. She could have torn through dozens before they brought her down. But she sensed the larger battle now, the one that would extend far beyond the arena. This moment was not their end. It was their beginning. She lifted her head with a defiant calm as the guards surrounded her, shackling her arms and restraining her with weighted chains meant for creatures twice her size. As they dragged her away from the Marine, something inside her shifted irrevocably. The Empire had taken many things from her throughout her life: freedom, choice, identity. But when they tried to separate her from him, they unknowingly created the first fracture in their control. A spark of rebellion burned deep within her chest, growing stronger with every step she was forced to take. The Marine and the Huntress had survived the arena. Now they would face the Empire itself. The arena was no longer just a battlefield. It had become a symbol, a crucible where two warriors from opposing worlds had found not hatred, but unity. The Empire did not yet know it, but the seeds of rebellion had been planted the moment the Marine and the Huntress had chosen to survive together. As the chains pulled them apart and dragged them back towards separate holding cells, the memory of their synchronized fight burned in both of them, a memory they would carry into war, into freedom, into love. The Marine awoke to the dim, sterile light of a containment chamber, his body battered, ribs aching, and muscles screaming with exhaustion. His vision adjusted slowly, revealing cold metal walls and the faint hum of energy fields designed to suppress escape. He flexed his fingers, feeling the lingering sting of his injuries and the weight of isolation. Yet in the back of his mind, the Huntress remained vivid. The way her movements had mirrored his, the way her presence had shielded him without thought of herself, the way her eyes had burned not with malice, but with purpose. It was a bond he could not sever, no matter the distance imposed by walls or chains. Meanwhile, the Huntress lay in a separate cell, her armor partially damaged, the scars from the arena still fresh. She had faced countless enemies before, endured pain that would have crushed most, but the human beside her had changed something fundamental. He had fought alongside her without command, without expectation, without fear, and she had felt something new stir inside her, a connection that defied orders, species, and centuries of indoctrination. She pressed her hand against the cold metal barrier, separating her from the Marine, as if feeling his presence through the wall, drawing strength from the memory of shared survival. Days passed slowly. The Empire attempted to break them individually, using threats, starvation, and isolation. The Marine was interrogated, the Huntress disciplined. Yet neither faltered. Their bond had become a silent rebellion, a pulse of defiance that the Empire could not extinguish. Each night, in dreams or in stolen moments of awareness, they replayed the arena fight, the precision, the synchronization, the shared glance before the final beast fell. They drew courage from one another, imagining the day they would fight not for survival alone, but for a cause greater than any empire. Then the Empire made a mistake. The containment facility had assumed that two warriors separated would remain compliant. They underestimated the intelligence of the human and the instinct of the Huntress. Exploiting a momentary lapse in surveillance, the Huntress began to manipulate her energy reserves, subtly weakening the electronic locks that confined her. Simultaneously, the Marine observed the patterns of his guards, noting cycles, pauses, and predictable movements. Through silent coordination, conveyed by gestures, subtle signals, and intuition honed in the arena, they planned their escape, a plan that required precise timing, absolute trust, and total reliance on one another. The night of the breakout arrived. The Marine cell door buzzed open as the Huntress had timed it with the guard's rotations. He stepped into the dim corridor, moving without hesitation, sensing the rhythm she had established. Every motion was synchronized, every breath counted. Their reunion was quiet but electric. No words passed between them. None were needed. Their eyes met, and the understanding was complete. They would fight together, escape together, and redefine the meaning of war between their species. They moved through the labyrinthine facility, disabling security mechanisms and neutralizing guards with calculated efficiency. Each encounter tested their coordination. When a patrol approached from the left, the Huntress drew them off with speed and precision, allowing the Marine to disable the security grid. When a reinforced gate threatened to slow them, he fired the lock's pulse disruptor while she held off incoming reinforcements. Every action built upon the other, the seamless cooperation they had discovered in the arena becoming their greatest weapon. By the time they reached the outer perimeter, the first hints of dawn brushed the sky. Their path led to the edge of the cliff, overlooking the desert plains surrounding Carvos. Below, the Imperial fleet had begun its patrols, scanning the horizon for escapees. But the Marine and the Huntress had planned for this. They raced to the edge, their eyes locked in unspoken agreement. He checked the trajectory, calculated distance, and wind. She adjusted her stance, channeling energy into the small anti-grav devices she had managed to smuggle from her armor. With a single leap, they launched themselves over the cliffside together, plummeting toward the desert below, landing in a cloud of dust that concealed their escape. They ran across the barren landscape, guided by a distant signal, a stolen ship waiting beyond the canyon. Their muscles burned, lungs ached, yet adrenaline and determination propelled them forward. As they neared the ship, the first pursuit crafts emerged on the horizon, alerted by the Empire to their absence. The Huntress activated the ship's cloaking mechanism while the Marine prepared defensive countermeasures, combining human ingenuity and alien technology in a seamless blend. When the crafts passed overhead, unaware of their precise location, the pair climbed aboard their vessel, sealing the hatch behind them and launching into the sky. For the first time since the arena, they were alone, not as captives, not as gladiators, not as enemies. The ship soared above the burning horizon, carrying two warriors whose destinies had collided in the sands of Carvos. They examined each other quietly, acknowledging the bond formed through blood, battle, and survival. It was an understanding deeper than words, a connection forged by fire and tempered in trust. Weeks passed as they traveled from system to system, seeking allies and planning the rebellion they knew they could inspire. The Marines shared knowledge of human tactics, strategies honed over decades of interstellar conflict. The Huntress provided insight into the alien empire, exposing weaknesses, training methods, and political fissures. Together, they became a symbol, proof that cooperation and understanding could overcome indoctrination and prejudice. Rumors of the arena survivors spread across galaxies, igniting hope among oppressed populations and fear within the Empire's elite. Their relationship deepened as they worked side by side. In the quiet moments between planning, in the isolated corners of their ship, they discovered facets of each other unseen by anyone else. He saw the vulnerability beneath her warrior exterior, the weight of expectations and sacrifices she had carried. She witnessed the humanity beneath his disciplined exterior, the courage not just to fight, but to care, to protect, and to trust someone entirely different from himself. Love bloomed in the midst of rebellion, not as an escape, but as a force amplifying their strength and resolve. The Empire, realizing the extent of the threat, launched attacks against scattered settlements sympathetic to the pair. Every skirmish became a test of their bond, requiring absolute coordination and unwavering trust. Yet no matter the danger, they endured, always returning to one another as both partners in combat and in life. Through each battle, the message became clear across the stars. Unity between species was possible, love between enemies was possible, and nothing, not even centuries of war, could erase the truth forged on the sands of Carvos. By the time they reached the core systems of the rebellion, the Marine and the Huntress stood not merely as fugitives, but as leaders. Their alliance had transformed into a movement, their bond into a legend. They had transcended the roles assigned to them by war, defied expectations, and created a destiny neither could have imagined alone. In the echoes of the arena, the fires of rebellion, and the stars beyond, they found not just survival, not just victory, but each other. And as their ship sailed into the galaxy's uncharted reaches, the Marine and the Huntress understood something undeniable. The greatest victories were not the battles won in blood, but the love and trust forged in the heart of chaos. Together, they would face the galaxy, not as enemies, not as gladiators, but as equals, as partners, and as the spark that would ignite a new era.